You put the clapper in front of your face, you are on the air.
Welcome to Talking Peace with the Western New York Peace Center. I'm your host, Vicki Ross. I'm the Executive Director at the Western New York Peace Center for the time being. And so I introduce our special guest, first of all, our topic, which is the Peace Center through the years, is a special topic, especially because the first guest I'm going to introduce, friend of the show and soon to be, doing some hosting herself, is the upcoming Executive Director of the Western New York Peace Center, Deidra EmEl. Deidra.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
So of course you've been on Talking Peace before, current office manager and coordinator, and also task force chair for the Economic Justice Task Force. So you've done plenty of Talking Peace through the years, before and after and every other time. So thank you for joining us, Deidra.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we'll be having you on plenty. You'll be hosting shows and everything. So, and then I want to say Maxine Insera. Hi, Maxine.
Hi, Vicki.
So
Hi,
Maxine,
everybody.
actually the first time I met Deidra was at your house for your
No kidding.
Pastors for Peace barbecue. Yes.
Oh,
Picnic.
yeah,
Yeah.
big on that. Yeah, I'm big on Cuba.
Yeah, you are. So are we all. So are we all. So
Yeah.
Maxine, especially, I want to mention your special connection as a former teacher, right?
School
Guidance
counselor.
And
I
school
was a
counselor and school
I was
counselor.
a teacher originally, and
Right.
then I became a school counselor.
Right, and did a lot of peaceful conflict resolution, all kinds of work in the
Right.
schools.
Right.
and-
With the support of the Peace Center.
Right, and with especially now, currently, especially in the last years, with the Latin American Solidarity Committee, which is what I've seen more of your work of late.
Right.
And then, of course, I want to say, Mr. Peace Center, when I first met you, Wayne Alt, who had his own office at the Western New York Peace Center when we had a building, right? Had your own office, right? That's how much work and support you did for the Western New York Peace Center since the day one, I want to say. So Wayne Alt,
Thank you.
welcome, Wayne. We're so glad that you were able to join us. And Wayne is actually in studio, by the way, here at Think Twice Radio. See, I'm so excited that I forgot to even mention that we're at Think Twice Radio, which is the home of the future, and Richard Wicca, our producer. We thank you, Richard. And I want to say, Richard and Wayne were talking all about, hi, Richard, there you are. So, Richard, they were going down memory lane. I could hardly get us to start the show because they were going down memory lane for the start of the Peace Center
Draft counseling.
in the 1967 with the Draft Counseling Board. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Wayne. You and Richard, go ahead talking about that, the beginnings and the birthing of the Western New York Peace Center, founding of it. Tell us.
Thanks, Vicki, very much. Those were trying years and very difficult years in the late 60s, of course, during the Vietnam War.
Right.
And we had a number of faith-based people and progressives in the Western New York area that were really concerned about the war. Mm-hmm. And they said, we got to create an organization that's going to turn this war into not a war, but a reason for friendship instead of war.
Right.
So a number of people got together and said, we got to stop men from and women going to war over in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. At that time, we also worked closely with the Buffalo Friends meeting to create the Buffalo Draft Counseling Center. We had so many people, young men and women, come from all over the country wanting to leave this country and go to Canada, either to avoid the draft or to not be enlisted in the draft. And it was quite successful. We had professors from the University of Buffalo doing counseling, and other people from the Quakers organization also doing counseling. So that was very a momentous occasion at that time. And we continued to educate Western New York people and listeners who would listen to our opinion on war and how violence was just not the way to go as far as Vietnam was concerned.
So what year was the Draft Counseling Center started?
The Draft Counseling Center was started about the early 70s, actually.
Oh, okay,
Early
so that was
a little
later.
after.
After the Western European
Correct,
Center.
yeah.
So now, Richard, so when did, so the Peace Center, I want to wait, before maybe we'll go chronologically, at least somewhat. Because the Peace Center was started in 1967 as part of the Dr. King's Clergy and Laity Concerned, or Clergy and Laity Against the War. Which one is more correct?
You're correct on both of them, actually.
They're both called, it's called both those things.
Martin Luther King Jr. gave a wonderful speech at Riverside Church in New York City,
Right.
and he emphasized the fact that war is not the way to go, and he was
Right.
concerned about Vietnam.
Right.
And he said, I would like to see the United States start some chapters which were called Clergy and Laity Concerned About Vietnam.
Right.
Buffalo was one of the 12 chapters chosen
Wow.
to facilitate his message to the public, and we emphasized that so much when we went to speak to different people. We would show slideshows in the 70s, slideshows to churches, slideshows to colleges, just to show them the destruction and the suffering caused in Vietnam and what we were doing to those poor people in that country. So
We
that
had
was
a speaker that came in. And I can't remember his name. He was just so wonderful. A speaker.
Uh-huh. And of course, Dr. King came here too, right?
Okay. I'm trying to think who that was.
The-
I can't remember his name.
Maxine, I think the director of Clergy and Laity Concern out of New York City was Richard Fernandez. You might have been thinking about him.
Uh-huh.
And then there was another, the next chairman of the board of Clergy and Laity Concern nationwide came to Buffalo and ended up on our board. And I just cannot recall his name, but
No,
he
and-
was very instrumental in making the organization one that people knew about and followed.
And he spoke at the Unitarian Church. We had a big meeting there, and people heard him speak, and it was really very moving because he had been there and he gave his experiences.
And so was that before or after Jim Ming and them were all getting arrested?
That was
That was-
before.
That was before.
Before,
Okay.
I think it was
Yeah.
before.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Now,
I think-
Richard, so Richard, when did you go to Clergy and Laity to the draft board counseling?
Okay, so I got my notice, the little card in the mail that you are 1A.
Uh-huh.
I got that in October 1969.
A little closer to the mic, right?
Yeah, I can't hear you as well.
Right. Yeah,
I turned off my microphone.
oh, see, that,
I'm
no wonder,
sorry.
no wonder, okay.
I got my little card in the mail stating you are 1A in October 1969. I got out the phone book and I said, I don't know anything about the draft, so I have to find out more about it. And so I looked under D, and that's where I saw in the white pages Draft Counseling Center of Western New York. So it must have been
Yay.
started before 69 because they were in the phone book by then.
You're right, Richard. It did start in 69. You're right. You're absolutely right on that.
I called up the phone. A guy named Larry Scott answered the phone, and I explained to him, I don't know anything about the draft, and I got this card. Can you explain it to me? And he said, come on down. I'll tell you all about it. And so I went there on North Parade, and I got to meet Larry, and he told me all the options that were available to me, including becoming conscientious objector. And with his help, I filed for conscientious objector, and I got it. And then I liked what the Peace Center was doing so well that I would just keep going back there again and again and again. And I got to meet a lot of the people and the clients who came in, who were just as interesting to me as the people who were doing the counseling.
Wow,
Wow,
that is so
that's
exciting.
impressive.
Well, I know that we were the other thing I mean, we always say 1967 and Ken Sherman. It was Ken Sherman, and it was as a part of Riverside Salem, which Riverside Salem to this day has a seat on the board. So there's one person who's the representative of Riverside Salem on the board, which I also go to Riverside Salem myself.
And that same year, 1969, I was part of a youth group in my local neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
And they said, this week we're going to have a speaker come in and talk to us on the subject of reform versus revolution. I present to you Mr. Kenneth Sherman.
Wow. Wow. Well, we gave Ken an award. In fact, he was one of the people we thought of. We gave Ken an award the year 2017 when we had Amy Goodman as our keynote speaker, which was very exciting. Very, very exciting.
Vicki,
Yes.
just to let you know, and some of the others, that there was a group of pastors who were instrumental in getting funding from national clergy and laity concern. One man, his name was Reverend Phil Smith. The other one was
Sure.
Reverend Donald Brown, who was head of the Western New York Presbytery. And they sat on a committee that secured funds from clergy and laity concern. And then Reverend Donald Armstrong was very instrumental in getting special funds from the UCC national denomination also.
And actually, Phil Smith, may he rest in peace. Phil Smith Presente. Phil was on the board when I first started with the
Right.
Western New York Peace Center. Phil was a great,
Vicki, just
great guy.
one other issue that
Sure,
happened in the
please.
70s
Keep
that
going.
was really
Yeah.
impressive and got a lot of publicity. During that time, Richard Nixon was president, and he appointed Henry Kissinger as Secretary of State. During that time, the Vietnam War was at its height, and it was just terrible. Then we found out that Henry Kissinger directed the military to bomb a hospital in Vietnam, and it was called the Bach Mai Hospital. We raised funds over a 10-year period for that hospital, but imagine bombing a hospital at that time.
We did it again in Afghanistan
Yes.
just a couple years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Doctors
Terrible.
Without Borders
Yeah, exactly.
bombed in 2000. I want to say 15. I think it was 15. I think I had just become the director. But anyway, and when did and so Jim Mang became let's say over the 70s there was the war. Finally, the war was shut down in what year?
Well, about 75, actually.
75, right, something like that.
Right.
So what was in the later part of the 70s? What was the Peace Center mostly working on?
Then we created some associations with labor unions at the time. And we had Sister Joan Malone came in, and we created a relationship with an organization called Coalition for Economic Justice.
Which is still a friend and ally.
That's correct.
Right.
And as Maxine remembers, the Latin America Solidarity Committee joined them in taking humanitarian goods, toothpaste, towels to families in the maquiladora, which were not very benefits were not very good down there. And they took jobs away from American plants up here. So we joined that in that effort, and we took caravans down to Mexico, and that was early. And then later on, of course, we joined Pastors for Peace for caravans too, which Maxine can tell you about.
Sure. So, and I know a lot of, so when things, let's say for the 70s and then moving into the 80s, what would you say? So is that when Pastors for Peace, we started with Pastors for Peace and a lot of affinity groups and things?
We started with task forces, and one of the large affinity groups was the Pledge of Resistance. This was when the time was a lot of repression in Latin America. The U.S. government supplied funds for the Contras in Nicaragua. They supplied funds for death squads in El Salvador.
Right.
They confiscated land in Guatemala, took them away from indigenous people to mine, and several different occasions which were just terrible. So these people would leave Latin America and Central America and come here. So we were very supportive of that effort too. And they went on, they couldn't stay in the United States. They had to go to Canada. So the church people created an organization called Vive.
Right.
And
Still
they helped
going
them
on.
get across the border. Yeah.
So now, what about another thing I think of when I think about the early years was the work against nuclear weapons, which is still going on and reaching a real fever pitch right now, I'd say.
Tompkins was very active in that. Mm-hmm. He was such a-
Maxine remembers, I think she remembers the canvassing what we did door to door in the neighborhoods
Right.
against nuclear weapons. And Jim Tompkins was very active in that.
Sure.
And then later on in the late 80s, Jim's wife, Audrey Mang, helped develop conflict resolution in the Buffalo Public Schools, which was the first non-faith organization that worked on conflict resolution in public schools. Others were faith-based
Right.
ones, like Quakers
Well,
and things like that.
Right.
I was on the board at around that time, and it was brought up if we should continue with clergy and laity. And I don't know if I was right or not, but my opinion was that the Peace Center should be not religious. So we disassociated ourselves with clergy and laity. But we still had in our heart the message that Martin Luther King gave. And, so my interest started with non-intervention in Chile. And then it went to, there's been a lot of U.S. Interference in Latin America. And that's the what happened in Nicaragua is what impelled Pastors for Peace to initiate their program.
Right.
So
Right.
that was really wonderful. Yeah.
So that would be about when in the
Oh, gee.
wait. Oh, yeah. It's like they're the 30. Now I know this, having been on a caravan, and we're still waiting for Deidre's getting her turn when it comes up. But Pastors for Peace, we were in the 30th caravan, and it was like the 28th year or something. So there were a couple of years they had two, something like that.
Yeah.
But so that means, it was in the early 90s that they started. So just what you're talking about. And that is such a great group. And in fact, we're excited, just a little preview, that, we do have this event going on May 5th that'll be all about Pastors for Peace. That'll be going on on Zoom.
A webinar.
Yeah, a webinar on Zoom.
And Gail
Walker.
who is Lucius Walker's daughter, who has taken over pastors, will be speaking. Plus, they are going to have a doctor who was trained at their school.
Right.
And
Good.
kids or somebody who's really a very good student can apply and go to school there and not have to pay anything. It's a full scholarship, and they turn out to be a doctor. Now, this is kind of interesting that, I got a cramp in my leg, that Anne Marie Zahn, who brings things down to Nicaragua, she's a lay missionary. Anyway, when I brought stuff over to her so that she could pack it up and put it on her on the trucks that go down, I told her about the Cuban doctors that were in Nicaragua, and she said, "Oh yeah, the Nicaraguans, if they see a doctor, they want to see a Cuban doctor."
Right.
So they have a very good reputation, and they do serve under poor communities in the states after they get trained.
Maxine,
Right.
Yeah.
could you just mention the fact that COVID-19 in many of the poor countries is being treated by Cuban doctors, and they
Oh,
a
well,
very small fraction of the country is affected, and their work is just wonderful.
They send doctors all over the world
Right.
to help people, help the countries, and actually, they get asked to come if I don't know. I
Right.
was just
Right.
looking it up, and there was a country that asked Cuban doctors to come to help out.
Well, I
So-
think they're in 38 different countries, is what I seem to remember.
Sounds
And-
right.
Yeah, no, they do. They are really, actually, having been, went to Elam, meeting the people, meeting the doctors, meeting Gail. We actually, of course, Gail was leading the caravan that I was on in 2018. Oh, yeah. So I got to know Gail. That was a real treat. She's just wonderful. And actually, when I was facilitating the thing we had last year about Pastors for Peace, she was not on it. So it'll be great fun to see her on this one coming up. Although we do have Talking Peace that week, too. So anyway, maybe I won't get to go. But in the meanwhile, a lot of people will be very excited about that. So I want to say, that the nuclear issue was, a big thing for the Peace Center in the 90s from what, from what I'd heard and from what I'd seen, and so was the peaceful conflict resolution. And I know that as we move forward, that's one of the things that Deidra is really, interested in and been talking about, that we might do more. We do have an Education and Human Rights Task Force. So the task force have changed over the years somewhat. Not Latin American Solidarity Committee. That is the oldest task force. That's why it's the one that's not called a task force. You have your own name, right? Latin American
Well,
Solidarity Committee.
Yeah, and then of course we got the economic justice one, and then we have
Yes, we do.
Then we have the disarmament one too, which is very important. That's very important also.
So what we have that corresponds is the Resist Militarism
okay.
Task
Okay.
Force. So
And
it's the same,
Yeah.
different name.
Right.
Same great
Right,
work.
Right. And then you have the environmental task force too, right?
Right, we have
Yeah.
that was new. That was my
Yeah.
idea, actually, I want to say, because we had something, it was called something else, I want to say, when Frank and Charlie were working on it, it started off being something much
Right.
more specific. I can't remember what it was, and then I thought, well, why don't we call it the Environmental Justice Task Force?
Yeah.
And the other thing we did is calling them justice. They're all something about justice or rights, except for the solidarity, which is also important, right? So the Latin American Solidarity Committee, but there's the economic justice, environmental justice, gender justice, immigrant and refugee justice. And there's a Resist Militarism. That isn't a justice thing. And then the other ones are the Prisoners' Rights Task Force and the Education and Human Rights Task Force. But so, Deidra, you want to talk a little bit about why you think that's such an area for us to go into more again? I want to say we've had 2 periods where it's been big. And so why does it need to be big again?
I think that that today we have a lot of wonderful, wonderful young activists that feel the urge, for change. They want to see change now. It is the season. It is you feel it in the air for a big turnover in government and so on. However, it kind of has a swelling and then it dies down because there's no foundation, there's no roots to the movement. They kind of move on emotion and being maybe angry or frustrated, But I think that a reform or revolution really comes from being educated in how to really make real change. You
Right,
know,
right.
we're always grasping at the branches of these different issues, but other issues grow up after we cut down those branches. So how do we, start to cut it down at its roots? And that comes from education. And I love that Mr. Ott was talking about, they went from group to group and they had slideshows and they educated the people about this is what the war is doing to people across the world.
Right. Right.
People, you didn't see all that on TV. You didn't see all that.
No.
They didn't have the internet.
She's right.
So they had to see it for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like with last year when they saw police brutality on their YouTubes, on their screens. Now they were ready to make a move. But how many years, you got comedians talking about police brutality. You got jokes in in movies about, but until they saw it for themselves, people of all different groups and nations and colors wanted to stand up for the same thing. So I think I think education is a great foundation, and the Peace Center being more of, like, I would say, the grandfather of a lot of these organizations and peace movements, need to, continue to trailblaze that area in education so that we can have, some real change that lasts forever.
Deidra, Deirdre, I just got a question for Deirdre. What type of enthusiasm do you have with people that you've worked with on gun control and gun education?
What type of enthusiasm?
Well, I mean, is there some enthusiasm not that, to do away with guns if we could? Is there any type of movement that you know of that is interested in doing that type of work?
Well, Vicki and I have been talking about Move the Money campaign.
Okay.
Which is on a larger scale than, just local gun control, but really moving the money from militarism and, from things that's happening right now into our communities, into education, into poverty,
Infrastructure,
into other issues. Yes. So we are really excited about working with Peace Action New York State and doing more in that campaign right now.
Right.
So I'm learning a lot.
It starts in the schools too.
That's great. That's great.
Conflict resolution and letting kids mediate their own problems, and that was so good. The Peace Center really helped with that, and I'm hoping that will continue.
Well, I think it will continue, and it will resume more so. So there was the time of the Mayings when Jim Maying, who passed this year, and I just say Jim Maying Presente. Jim was such a leader, and for 20 years leading the Peace Center as the executive director with his wife, Audrey, who is, of course, still with us, as one of two or three people devoted to peaceful conflict resolution in the schools. So that was the real heyday, when there was just a huge amount of peaceful resolution going on in the schools that we were heading up anyway. And it makes me think of Gandhi and how Gandhi said, if you want to have peace, we must start with the children, right?
Yeah.
But what I want to say, too, when I started with the Peace Center, which was 2008, there was peaceful conflict resolution, and I was hired to do that.
Right.
That's what I was hired to do as a social worker who worked with kids and families and who was educated in in law and diplomacy and actually economics, and on peacemaking in that kind of foreign policy kind of thing, and also working with kids and families. So it was sort of, to me, it was kind of a hybrid. And I really got trained while doing it to do peaceful conflict resolution. And I learned quickly and learned a lot and did concentrate on that more than anything more than anything else, and on community building. And I did that from 2008 until I became the director in 2015, and that was when, somebody reared their ugly head, let me say, if I can say that. I actually don't appreciate it when people are commenting about people's looks, especially he who shall not be named, because I wish that was the only problem. And there were these huge problems of very ugly actions and very mean and misguided and just wrong, and, when Trump came along. So then that was when, it was right when he started, was 2015, he came to Buffalo in the spring of 2015, I think, because the election was in 2016. So anyway, so that when I became the director, between the fact that I just had different responsibilities, and then all of a sudden we were plunged into this real emergency situation. It was just chronic, constant chaos, if you're working for peace and justice.
Right.
So we did what we could, and we still did some, we still had Camp Peace Prince, and we still did some work with kids and youth. And we did plenty of nonviolent training, nonviolent direct action training, because there were so many protests and things. Go ahead, Deidra.
I think that's when I met. I think that's when we started coming to Camp Peace Prince.
Yeah,
2015-ish.
that might have been, or it might have been a little bit earlier, because when I met you, like I said, it was at Maxine's. And I think that there were a couple of years, and you started working as the office administrator, and we added on coordinator, or office manager and coordinator. The coordinator part got added on because as we had, our interns and your interests and your coordinating of different things other than just doing the office piece.
Yeah.
There's been all kinds of pieces. And in fact, Vivian and I wanted to hire you for Camp Peace Prince, and then Solomon had a year off of Camp Peace Prince when we were doing, so that didn't work out, which lucked out for me, because then you ended up working for us. So it's, and doing so much great work, so much wonderful work that you do. And we have a Peace Jam going on right now that we have the final, the Global Call to Action project will be completed tomorrow, that people can join on Facebook Live actually as well. One thing I said we'd talk about is some of the obstacles. I said we'd talk about some of the successes of the Peace Center, the different campaigns that we've been interested in and working on, and also some of the obstacles and difficulties. So I want to throw that out, especially for the early years and then also for the current years, what we have, because I think we have plenty of both, plenty of successes, plenty of campaigns that we're working on and different initiatives of all kinds, and plenty of real issues that make it hard to make real headway. So, yeah,
I'll just
we'll
comment.
give it to you first, Wayne.
I
Yeah.
do get a lot of mailings from national peace organizations, and I was astounded at not having them talk about our military budget very much. And I mean, Joe Biden is showing us how you can transfer money out of the military into the infrastructure, money for people, money for education, money for health care.
Right.
I mean, we have so many things we need money for.
We're not
I
kidding.
mean, it's unbelievable. And I hope that national and international peace organizations start to emphasize that. I really do. And I think I think the Peace Center did. We tried to get the word out and diminish the military budget and things like that.
That's what's wonderful about the Peace Center, is that a group from one of the task forces or just a group that forms can go speak to a elected official and give our opinions. And I think it does color what they're going to do. when they see people that are informed and can
Exactly.
explain what's going on. So I think that's an enormous benefit of the Peace Center, something that's really good that is done.
And we've actually done the lobbying that we've done one of the ways that we've done it has been through Peace Action, because Peace Action and Peace Action New York State in particular, of which we are a part, and of course which is a national peace action, they've been very good about helping and
Contact
leading
Congress people.
lobbying efforts. And I want to say I talk a lot and tweet a lot, and we do social media or different mentions, and very interested in, first of all, uniting the struggles, so how it's all connected. And one of the ways that it is all connected is money for people and the planet, not for Fear Inc. So we have what we need. We need money, more money for family support, for education, for health care, for infrastructure, for so many things, for that transitional costs to get out of this climate catastrophe that is brewing and that we can't stop, but we can mitigate and reduce before it's too late. We need money for all those things. And what do? Spend more than half of our discretionary budget on the military, on contractors, on all kinds of other things. And not only that, to me, Fear Inc. is all of that, all the efforts to control, intimidate, and incarcerate and even kill.
Yep.
So all that pruning or hitting or hurting that's going on, and people say, oh, you think we don't need a military? Well, we're not there. We're at the point where we have spending more than the next, arguably, I've
9
heard
countries.
well,
9.
some say 9,
Yeah.
some say 10,
Yeah.
some say 8 or 7 or 11,
Yeah. We're
however
in
many
top.
it is. We spend so very much more, depending on how you're counting. Let's say as an average 9. Let's say that 9 or 10. I think I've seen 10 as the number I would pounce on. But whichever one it is, it's way, 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 way more
Yeah.
than any other country. And the amount we spend on the nuclear that is killing people here in Western New York. That's why we have, and that is the
Intimidation.
threatening the world. It's like a gun at the temple of the world.
Exactly.
All day long, every day on hair trigger
Yeah.
alert, and costs a huge amount. And the numbers, the data is just astounding. So people want to go to the Kings Bay Plowshares. They are friends who have doing time trying to draw attention to that. So, but I call Fear Inc. is not just that, it's also the policing. Does it mean we don't need any police? We're not there. We're at the point of all the funding that used to go in for community centers and everything else went in, while that's going down, less and less for community mental health and other things. The police budget has been getting more and more and more. So we need to defund Fear Inc. or just reduce and reallocate the responsibilities and the funding. Deidra, I can see. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that it's always a two-edged sword, because like you're saying that the money is going away from the community centers into more policing, but why is there the feel that we need more policing? Okay, maybe
Right.
we have more crime. Why do we have more crime?
Right.
Well, we go back to economic justice.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do everyone have what they need to survive and to live
They don't have it.
a substantial life? Not just minimum wage, but a livable wage. What does that look like? And so it's like you said, it's all united, it's all connected. But I think that's where we come in at, and help to make make those connections.
That's right.
Absolutely. And that's part of the education piece like you
Yeah.
were talking about. And that's
From
part of the
youth to adult.
educating of why we know that crime has to do with poverty extremely, and mental health and addiction. So helping, working on all those. And, oh, I want to say the other one that no one ever talks about that I talk about a lot. Distrust in the community.
Yeah.
People don't trust each other. There's so much distrust, and there's so much of, automatic adversarial, right? And so that, our moral, when Cornel West talks about moral integrity and universal solidarity, and those two things, if we can really have them, try to have them ourselves to the very best that we can manage, and always learning more, and also instilling that in our children and expecting it from each other, expecting it from our politicians. We can do that. People say, oh, well, what do you expect? People just do, take the, grab what, take care of number one. No. We have to be a community, be the beloved community, and that's who all the leaders, and including religious leaders or
Yeah.
of the various faiths,
Faith-based, yeah.
but just a moral, and this is where the Poor People's Campaign comes in too. So, and they also uniting the struggles, also the women's movement, or any of these that are about uniting the struggle. I think that's a big piece, a key piece that we need.
Well, I don't think you should miss Women in Black.
Oh, no, we
It's
love women in
really,
black.
it's weekly, and at what is that park?
At Bidwell Park, the intersection of Bidwell and Elmwood, which I
Right.
go, I won't say, I usually go about halfway through. I don't even try to get there on time. And people can go as short or as long as you
Women in
want.
Black,
Any Saturday, noon to 1. It's on automatic pilot. There's signs there. You just come, show up, stay as long as you can for a bit. I think the days will come back pretty soon that people will start go for coffee afterwards, what they used to do. That's
Can I share more about what the Women in Black,
How it
who they
started?
are, what it is?
Sure. Well, I would say it started in the 80s as part of.
Iraq.
Well, no,
Worldwide
excuse me, if I could.
Israel, Palestine.
It was, Israel and
Palestine, that's
Palestine.
right. You're
Women
right.
in Israel and Palestine who were standing and would wear mourning,
Yeah.
be dressed in black in mourning, and in a silent vigil with signs about stopping the violence. So that they didn't succeed in doing that in Israel and Palestine, but they did, create this worldwide movement. So we've had it in Buffalo. That's where you're right. The part that it was started in Buffalo in 2000, and I want to say in 2002,
Yeah.
about the run-up to the war on Iraq, was when it was started. And that's been
yeah.
going for,
Yeah.
noon to 1.
21
at
years.
Saturday.
Yeah, 22 years.
Yeah, well, it's so terrible that it's that long. But because those issues are still going on. But anyway, so just people can come out then. That's always a good thing. And actually, that's one thing that the Western New York Peace Center has really specialized in as well, especially in these later years. We had, first of all, we've had the biggest rallies for peace and justice that have ever been had in Buffalo.
Oh, yeah.
When we had almost 4,000 people in 2017, and then almost 5,000 people in 2018 for the women's marches that we organized, with our allies and with the support of allies and co-sponsors. But also just so many, we had so many rallies. Oh my God. There was always National Day of Action for this, National Day of Action. We really specialized in doing that. But the other thing that we've done is we have dedicated people who, like Women in Black, as you mentioned, Charlie Bowman and his wife Anne Marie bring the signs for Women in Black. So they make sure if they are going to miss a weekend that somebody brings those signs so that people can come. And you don't have to wear black. It's not a silent vigil anymore. I want to congratulate myself when I was the one who said, we cannot have a sign up that says it's a silent vigil and have people quietly talking to themselves. So they stopped doing that. So it's a quiet vigil. People are, peaceable. They're not yelling at other people or, making a big harangue, just standing there quietly. And you visit with people there that while you're standing there and really bearing witness, which is what Gandhi said, it's a sin to be silent when one should protest. So that's Women in Black, which I'm very grateful for. But we have any number of vigils. We have a vigil for Immigrant and Refugee Justice Task Force. We have a vigil in front of the Erie County Holding Center that has been going on since 2009, that Chuck Culhane holds down. There's Charlie, they really do like their vigils. They have another one that is no nuclear waste over the Peace Bridge that is out in front of it's at Vermont and Bustye.
Yeah.
Vermont and Bustye, 2 to 3 p.m. on every Friday. And let's see, am I missing one? The one I didn't say that the one for immigrant and and one for immigrant and refugee justice is in front of the ICE offices that are at Delaware, the Delaware North Building, at Delaware and Chippewa.
Chippewa.
Yeah, Delaware and
Also,
Chippewa.
the Peace Center is part of sending delegations to Washington,
Oh, sure.
other groups, and that's really wonderful that's done as well.
And we haven't done now. That's another one that's sort of, I think our heyday of doing that was we had a lot of, we've done it, but we've also done solidarity ones here. We try not to sort of, we don't want to pull, or take away or compete with the ones that are going down. So sometimes we'll decide at the last minute if we're sending people down to then anybody who doesn't go could join us.
Or they
in
could
Buffalo.
make telephone calls to the office, too.
Oh, sure. There's
Yeah,
plenty of lobbying
right.
going on. But I'm going to say that the heyday, when I hear we spent a lot of time and money sending delegations to Washington in like the early 2000s.
Iraq, yeah. Oh,
Yeah, that's when we really did a lot of that. And lately it's been
buses.
more of a mix. I mean, sometimes we do, it depends on what's going on. We do what we can.
For in the early 2000s? Was it to lobby for specific?
It was anti-war war in Iraq.
Yeah,
The
that's
The
right.
early 2000s
Okay.
Yeah.
was,
I thought so,
Bush
yeah.
and, all of that was going on. And so when I moved, I'm going to say I didn't move to Buffalo until 2007. So, but I did get connected to Women in Black and through Women in Black to the Peace Center pretty much immediately. Because I was at a Bidwell concert and I said to somebody, hey, how do you get plugged into the peace movement around here? And they're like, well, just come right here on Saturday, at noon, and it'll be Women in Black. And then they told me about the Peace Center, and that, the rest was history for me. So, and I know for you, your connection really was through Maxine, right? To the Peace Center, right, Deidra?
Yes. Well, actually, my connection to the Peace Center is through Maxine. She was my old counselor from performing arts,
In the way.
and really a wonderful person, and made a big difference in my life. Then so that's why I'm here where I am today. I would say.
It's good to hear.
Yeah. Look, you did good.
You did good. Yes, you did. Because here she is, and this is why you got the job. The reason you got the job was not because you work for us, with us, was because you are a lifelong pursuer of peace and justice. That it's part of who you are. It's so deep in you. And that's been obvious. That's why you got the job in the first place for working for us at all, which was not even your bent, because you're much more of a social working type than managing the office type. And yet you talk about soldiering on. That's the good word for the soldier, because you just do what needs to be done to make it happen, or what's needed. And that was what we needed. And you've been what we need at the Western New York Peace Center,
Well, she
Deidra.
has a
I have
lot of
great examples.
integrity.
Yes,
A lot
exactly.
of integrity, and
And
you know where she stands, which is really good.
it's the moral integrity and universal solidarity, and
Yeah.
that grace and dignity too, right? That's
Yeah.
what Cornell said. He's so right. And you know what? Sally Jones, who just met you last night or just re-met you last night, she
Yeah.
said that very thing to me when we talked today. She said how gracious and how much presence you have, you know, which you do, you know, and
Well,
it's that.
I hope that it can help to make change happen.
Oh, it will. You will, and you already do.
But I have such great, shoes to fill. I feel so honored, sitting among all of you today. Really, I'm just like I'm just taking notes and I'm just learning, soaking up everything as a sponge. And we hope to do more with the history and information that you have
Right.
in the next couple of months. Kelly and I have some ideas, so you'll be hearing from us soon.
Great. Well, here's what I want to tell you is first of all, we had one person already join, and I hope she'll join us back in a minute for the next show, because we only have a couple more minutes. So I'd like to really do a little go round to have people share any, final thought that you want to do. So we'll do this again sometime,
Okay.
for sure. So
yeah, just other issues maybe that we have not been much involved with is state issues. There's 3 things I'm thinking about, and something that we should be working on all the time, and that
Right.
is concern for refugees.
Oh,
we
we
have
are.
6 or 7 refugee houses here, and as you saw by our new president,
Okay.
is very supportive of those
okay,
people.
so that's one thing.
That's one thing. The other thing is sustainable natural resources. We have
Right.
legislation that says we have to use more of those resources, and there's some people down upstate that are against this. They want to still use fossil fuel. And the third thing is support for farm workers, migrant farm
Sure.
workers,
Yeah.
which we were very successful in getting legislation passed.
Yeah, so I hope you saw Deidra,
Yeah.
all in favor. And we're all in favor. And it's just about getting things done. So, Maxine, final
Well,
thoughts.
We haven't mentioned School of Americas.
Right.
That
Right.
the Father Roy Bourgeois is trying to expose how they're training
Right.
military people to go to Latin American countries
Going back to their countries.
and
Well, and actually, I want to say on my way over here, I noticed for the first time, because I'm not that observant, I noticed a big,
Sign.
what do you call it? Yeah, sign. The big thing from
Yeah.
Father Roy Bourgeois about ordaining women into the priesthood.
priesthood.
Yes, so God bless
Oh, yeah,
Father
he's
Roy.
also in support of that.
He got dumped out of the Catholic Church
Yeah.
because of that. Excommunicated for his noble
Stand
integrity and solidarity.
with women.
Yep. Thank you for bringing both of those things up. Really, they're so very connected. Thank you, Maxine. And Deidra, any final thoughts for now?
Thank
Yeah,
you.
those are my final thoughts. That I was just really honored to be here, and I really hope to do this soon again, and gather more information so we can go forward.
Great.
Have big shoes to fill.
Well, we do have a lot to do.
could do it.
What?
She could do it.
Oh, I know she could do it. She is already doing it. So we're just going to be doing it together. And I will say, people are welcome to join the Western New York Peace Center, join as a member, make a donation, join a task force, go to the meeting, join, call us up, tell us what you're interested in. If you have a project, we're often ready to help. We do what we can. We need all of us. It's going to take all of us. So we're going to keep right on working together. And I want to say, we've been talking peace, and together we are talking peace
Very
in
good.
truth and love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. It's been great to be here with everybody.
That was good.
Yeah, it was great. It was so good. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you for actually coming in. Maxine, it was wonderful to have you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and Deidra,
Thank you.
we're getting
Okay.
there. We'll get there. Okay, big hugs.
Yep.
Big hugs and love. Thanks a jillion.
Very good.
Okay,
Very good.
okay, bye for
Good job.
now.
Good job, Vicki.
Thank you. Thank you, Wayne. We'll do this again soon.
Yeah.
Okay, take care. This was the way to do it.
Yeah.
You take care. Thanks.
Hey, should I leave the
Yes,
meeting?
you should. Yep, leave the meeting. That will be great. Thank you so much. Oops, oops, oops. So somebody came in to the Zoom room and now I'm not sure. Oops, I didn't mean to